After tomorrow, I'm at least gonna go ride the exercise bike with me.
Oh, good. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our April 21st meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moving on to the consent agenda. It includes 5 items. It was published and copies are available. If you'd like to discuss an item, it'll be moved to the regular agenda and comments can be made at that time.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the consent agenda and authorize the chair to sign documents as required.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item 3 is to consider the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. Moving right along to announcements. Robert, where'd you go? Oh, right there. Robert had some information for us this morning. Thanks for being here, Robert.
Good morning, Robert Gill, Sheridan County Airport Manager. I just had one update I wanted to provide for the benefit of the board and the public. One challenge we're starting to see here in the last couple of weeks at the airport is an issue with migratory birds, specifically sandhill cranes. We're seeing flocks of 25 to 40 that are just really hanging around the area hard and bouncing around and put a lot of effort in trying to run them off. Today, we're going to set out propane cannons. That's a tool that we have that's non-lethal that we can put out in various areas to help harass them and run them off. Their computerized system will set them on timers, so they're not going to always be going off, but they're pretty loud. It's going to sound like there's a lot of firearms going off at the airport. And just wanted to let everybody know that that's what's going on up there. So,
Robert, how many, just today or how many days or as needed?
we'll probably leave them.
So,
Sorry, yeah, we'll probably leave them out as needed. Hopefully, it'll just be a couple weeks. I guess we'll kind of see what they do and go from there. But we'll every couple of days we move them to new locations, aim them in different directions. But we're going to focus on kind of the problem areas there where they're bouncing back and forth too. But hopefully, within a couple of weeks, we'll be able to take them back down.
okay, great.
Awesome. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Robert. Appreciate it. Do you have any other announcements this morning? No? Okay. Moving on to item 5, public comments on matters not on the agenda. We've got Vicky. Morning, Vicky.
Thank
Come on up.
Can you hear me? No?
There we go. Yeah, speak right into it. Thank you.
Okay. This is kind of short for even me. I didn't.
Right into that microphone. Sorry, Vicky.
Okay.
There we
Now,
go.
can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
This is a kind of short even for me. I hadn't anticipated speaking except for the last couple of days. I went up County Road 66, which is, runs east and west. And I noticed there were some piles of dirt off the dump truck in that road, on the roadway there on the north side. And I remember going back maybe even 12 years when that property down in there where the dirt piles are occurring. That property had been in possession of a Terhar, Camilla or Camille Terhar and her husband, and they sold it. And I believe it's been at least 12 years ago. And they sold it for, I think, $220,000 because they found out that there was a flooding event. And the water came from the south, some property across the road, hit the west side of the bridge as you're going up. If you were coming down, it'd be the east bridge, and then crossed over and passed down into the floodway, the creek itself. But now there seems to be some activity out there, and that's what prompted me to want to ask a few questions. And I spoke with Wes Smiley yesterday, and he was very cordial and very informative. And what he told me was essentially that the area being considered for some type of development is what is being referred to as a floodplain fringe. Not the floodway, which would be the creek, but the fringe, a sort of a concept I was not totally aware of, but at any rate, as this moves forward, should it, I don't know why they're putting dirt in there. I don't know who owns it now. If you're familiar with it, it's the property that has the Greek columns. They're plastic wedding things. But anyway, Mr. Smiley or Wes had said that they are working right now under a sort of engineering to see if maybe up in the extreme northeast edge of the property, something could be built. And so I asked him, well, what engineering firm? And he didn't have that right at hand, and it's not that important. But he did indicate, should it move forward, whether it be, I don't know what it might be, a single home. I have a great deal of difficulty in seeing how they could build townhouses or something like that in there. But at any rate, he had said, Mr. Smiley, that they would do a thing called a LOMA, which is a location map adjustment, rather than a LOMAR, which is a location map revision, a little more tweaking of what's happening here. But at this point, nothing can be done. And I know you're probably wondering, well, why are you commenting on a nothing? Well, the reason being, I have a very clear optic of what had happened back a good 12 years ago, that flooding. There was a man by the name of Lumen, I think. He worked for the city of Sheridan. He went out, he took films of the water coming down the creek, crossing the road, hitting the bridge abutment, going back into the creek. And people that can be affected by this would be the gentleman on the south side of the road and anybody on the north side that would be headed towards town. And it seems like we have a kind of a situation where lots of property, somewhat dubious as to the ability to deal with flooding events. We got the Woodland Creek Estates, and that's got its own issues. And there are teal ponds again. And what I'm wondering is, are the individuals who own this property, are they considering some kind of sale of it? Or are they considering marketing? And I'm just about through with my remarks here. I don't know how engaged the county has been with this, but clearly what's being done at the moment is legal beagle. There's no problem at the moment with bringing in fill dirt, no problem with, it'll wash out anyway if we had a flood. Don't look like we're gonna have one, but maybe. But at any rate, what is the future of this and how does it impact other areas? We've seen areas over in Manchester that kind of peculiar out on Big Goose, the Ox Bowl, I believe that's a little bit different there. But all of these things put property in areas potentially affected by flooding. And my concern would be, are we being, that is the county, and when I say we, the county, are we being assistive to people doing a minimal? And I do believe that Camille and her husband sold that property for $220,000. And I think it's something like 5.5 acres, something like that. But are we kind of helping a sort of situation where we're not really looking out after the interests of those that might come? In other words, could we find this property put up for sale? Somebody comes in and buys it and thinks everything's legit, not realizing that they're going to have to hire engineers and go through a tremendous process to do whatever they might think they can do with this property. And that's my only remarks. I thank you for hearing. I don't expect any kind of answer. But this one, I am clear on this. Mr. Smiley did say where they are at this point in time, they can't be. They can do what they're doing now. Should the ball get kicked down the road even a small bit, they're going to have engineering on it. So thank you very much for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Vicki.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know we're hoping any day for those FEMA dollars to do the flood mapping. So, all right, do we have any other public comments on matters not on the agenda? I didn't have anybody else on the list. Okay. We'll move on to consideration of fiscal year 25-26 budget amendment number 2. And I'll call on Ida Thompson, County Budget Officer, County Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. Alderman Hazel, Division Thompson, County Budget Officer. For your consideration this morning, you will see Resolution 26-04042, Budget Amendment Number 2. Following the statutory process lined out for us, the Board of Sheridan County Commissioners may transfer unencumbered or unexpended appropriation balances from one fund to another. And looking at where we currently are with our budget, I am requesting as the County Budget Officer the following transfers. And the following changes, if approved today, would be made to our Sheridan County fiscal year 26 budget from the general fund. We have you'll see I color coded in the resolution in front of you. The green highlighted area is an increase in revenues and the light peach is an increase in expenditures. Revenues are for the Capital Facilities Tax Fund to be increased in the amount of $225,697. This amount was missed when the budget was submitted for adoption. And I apologize, but a week ago Monday, I accidentally handed out the green budget book ahead of schedule and passed it down the line to you. Said, this is Deb's book, let's return it, but I had marked the pages to show you where it was missing in that budget. So again, when we looked at the adopted budget, this line item was not even there. So we would be adding this line item with this amount to amend our budget if approved today. The second transfer request is for expenditures for information technology. This is an increase in the amount of $54,459.10. This is for the additional licensing, equipment, software, and maintenance that was approved by you, the board, on January 20th, 2026, and then on February 2nd, 2026. So this is in follow-up to those board decisions. That completes Budget Amendment 2 request, and stand for any questions.
Any questions for Clerk Thompson? Pretty straightforward. Thanks for explaining that to us. This does require a public hearing, and I will open that at 9:13. Do we have anyone from the public that wants to come up? Okay. All right, so we have no comments. I'm going to close the public hearing. I'm going to call it 9:14.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve and adopt resolution number 26-04-042.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those, any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item 7 is to consider a notice of award to expand the long-term parking lot project, and I'll call on Robert Gill, Airport Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Robert Gill, Sheridan County Airport Manager. On March 12th, 2026, Sheridan County Airport received and opened 4 bids for expand long-term parking lot project. The bids were submitted by Wagner Ranch Services LLC, Simon Contractors, LJS Concrete and Excavating LLC, and Optidal Construction. Each submission included the required 10% bid bond along with all supplementary documentation. After review, I respectfully recommend awarding the project to the low bidder, Wagner Ranch Services, with a total bid amount of $992,206. This bid is below the engineer's estimate provided by Morse Merrily. Morse Merrily, along with the FAA Denver Airport District's Office and the WYDOT Department of Transportation Aeronautics Division, have also reviewed the bids and agreed that the bid is reasonable and acceptable. Wagner Ranch Services has met all submission requirements and is fully compliant with the bid specifications. Therefore, I would respectfully recommend that the Sheridan County Board of Commissioners award the contract to Wagner Ranch Services LLC and authorize the chairwoman to execute the notice of award and all associated contract documents for this project. I would also include too that this project wasn't originally shown in the airport's capital improvement budget. I was anticipating most of the work taking place this next year. We might see some invoicing for that in this year's fiscal budget as well, and that can be covered with the airport's capital accounts. I would stand for any questions.
Any questions for Barbara? Yes,
Madam
Yeah.
Chair. I move to award the bid contract to expand long-term parking lot project to Wagner Ranch Services LLC, the amount of $992,206, and authorize the chair to execute the notice of award and all associated contract documents for this project.
Second.
I appreciate all the boxes that have to be checked to get to this point and all the FAA review, state review with aeronautics. And as we've all seen driving by that parking lot that's there now, it's full. So it'll be nice to have that.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other discussion?
Chair,
Yeah.
I think it's really nice to see multiple bids and a bid coming in significantly below the engineer's specifications. So, I'll be in favor of this because we do need it out there.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Robert. All right, item 8 is consideration of the de-annexation report for a portion of Lot 2 of Reed's Addition, and I'll call on Mark Reed, County Planner.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Reed County Planner. What we have here is a petition for de-annexation that has been submitted by Dale Reeder on March 3rd to de-annex 6.99 acres in the town of Dayton. It's in your report there. Here, I can get the map to come up on here. Here it is. Petition has also been filed with the town clerk pursuant to Wyoming statute 15-1-421. A report on the impact of de-annexation shall be prepared by the Board of County Commissioners within 60 days of the county's receipt of the petition. The proposed report touches on a number of items. I'm not going to read all those to you. You've had a chance to look at this. Included in the information is the information on the original annexation, parcel information, what the county designates in terms of long-range planning and land uses, existing municipal services, and anticipated county service impacts, as well as anticipated county revenue impacts. This report does not provide a recommendation as to whether de-annexation as petition should occur or not. It's simply an itemization of anticipated impacts that might occur to the county government. And so I'll leave it at that. I believe the petitioner may be present, I believe is. And so with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Yeah, and I would just note for the public, the Board of County Commissioners is only approving the report. We don't approve actually the de-annexation. So that will go back, that will be the Dayton Town Council's responsibility. So just the report that Mark Reed has provided us. So I do have 2 folks here to speak on this. We have Dale Reeder, if he wanted to come up and add anything. and Norm Anderson.
Go ahead. I don't have, not bad.
Madam Chairman, County Commissioners, when this piece of property was annexed, I was on the council and Mayor Bob Wood he was the mayor at the time. I was mayor after him. But this is a piece where Dayton can grow with conservation easements in place. We have nowhere to grow the town of Dayton. So I really am not in favor of this project.
Any questions for Mr. Anderson? No, appreciate you coming over.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
may I speak?
yes, please, come on up
Yep.
and give us,
No, I'm not-
give us your name.
Yep.
Just for the record.
None of us know Cliff, so yeah.
No.
Yeah.
In case there's folks not watching the video.
Thank you for this time. My name is Clifford Reed. I am the mayor of the town of Dayton. I am a longtime proponent of property rights for individuals. However, I was talking to a very wise person who used to be on a planning committee in Dayton years ago. And she made a comment to me that was concerning as far as the future of this goes. And I know Mr. Rader well. Initially, I was in favor of this. Now with this comment, and I'll share it with you, I am concerned that perhaps once we de-annex this piece of property, are we going to have landowners with acreage that bounder the county right now that are in the city limits? Are we going to have 3 or 4 people that I know of? Or could we have requests from them to come in and de-annex? That does concern me. And my question to you is, have you seen people in the past that live in the city that border the county that have maybe 4 or 5 acres? Have you run into that before? Where you've had people come in and request de-annexation based on property tax, trying to save some money in that area? And that's my question. And that is my fear that we're gonna, because I can think of 3 other lots in the town of Dayton that might do this. So it does concern me.
Yeah, I appreciate the complexities of working along a city-county boundary for sure. I mean, we're working with the city of Sheridan right now on some of those issues. So definitely understand that perspective.
Have you seen any of this?
Well, we have seen, and maybe I'll just let Mark go in a little more. I don't remember the last de-annexation, but we do have folks going rural residential to agricultural.
Madam Chair, in terms of de-annexation, in my time here, there've been 2 other petitions. One was in Dayton, that was on the south side of Dayton. And they ultimately decided not to de-annex. Another one was on the west side of Sheridan. And in that instance, the city decided, no, we're not going to de-annex. So in my experience, those are the only other 2 that I can recall.
Yeah.
And in both cases, the petitions were denied by the municipalities.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Cliff. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I would look for a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Jones.
I move to approve the report regarding the de-annexation of a portion of Lot 2 of Louise Edition Number 1 and request the town of Dayton to require a survey.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Madam Chairman.
Yep.
Just one more time, I'd like to reiterate here that by accepting this report, this in no means says that the county commissioners are in favor of the de-annexation. And I know Mr. Rader very well too. And I believe that it was annexed when he purchased the property and it was known at that point in time. And so I would support obviously whatever the Dayton Town Council comes up with. But by approving this report, it by no means says that the commissioners, at least this commissioner, is in favor of the annexation.
All right, any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of supporting the report, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thanks, folks. Item 9 is consider item EV 26001, Lion Dog easement vacation. I'll call on Mark Reed, County Planner again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great catch. Lion Dog Investments LLC, Joseph and Kendall Hartman have applied to vacate the platted 10-foot wide utility easement less the 20-foot, 10-foot wide portions adjacent to the front and rear lot lines centered on the line between lots 9 and 10, Block C, Powder Hole Ranch, PV Phase 8. I'm going to go ahead and just cut straight to the planning commission's recommendation on this item. On March 31st, 2026, the Sheridan County Planning and Zoning Commission voted 3-0 to recommend approval of item EV 26001, Lion Dog easement vacation, vacating the 10-foot wide platted utility range that stretch the easement, less the 20-foot, 10-foot wide portions adjacent to the rear and front lot lines centered on the line between lots 9 and 10, Block C, Powder Hole Ranch, TBD, Phase 8. The applicant is present and their agent as well. So if you have any questions on my report, I'd be happy to answer.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mark, I just want to clarify because there was a couple of places where it kind of sounded like they are, but I want to make sure for certain Lion Dog Investments and it is owned by Joseph and Kendall Hartman, correct? Same owners?
That's my understanding. They can verify that if you'd like to.
Yeah, if you have anything to add, please come up. Yeah. These are pretty straightforward vacations. I've done a few of these in the
I'm
past.
Kendall Hartman.
And get right into that microphone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kendall Hartman, and the property where the house was built and lived in by my mother. And at a certain time, she could no longer live there. And so my husband and I, we did purchase the property from her, and we rented it. Lion Dog rented it. Okay, established Lion Dog for that purpose, and it's been rented for a number of years. Along the way, we did purchase the lot next door when it became available. We now are living in the house and will continue to live there, and we will probably revert that back to Kendall and Joseph Hartman once we remodeling and the addition that we're going to do. Does that help?
Yes.
Does that help? Yes, it's Joseph and I are also Lion Dog. Our dog common is actually Lion Dog. It's for him. It's all for him.
Great. Thank you. If there's no other comments, I'd look for a motion.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I move to approve item EV 26-001, Lion Dog easement vacation and planning and zoning commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? None. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thanks for being here this morning.
I'm invested. I'm sorry.
We see so many of these. Yeah. We joke about how much money guys like that make. All right, moving on to item 10. Consider item E-20-001, a weekend setback variance, and I'll call on Mark Reed, County Planner.
Again, Madam Chair, members of the board. Proposal today is from Nancy Ehab. It's applied for a variance from a 20-foot rear yard zoning stand and requested a setback of 6 feet for an existing 10 by 16 accessory building in the rural residential district. The applicant's property is addressed as 11 Black and Box Road, which is County Road 25. And it is not within any platted subdivision. Specific provisions, she's seeking relief from in section 7. Number 1, no building or land shall hereafter be used, no building or part thereof shall be erected, converted, enlarged, reconstructed, or altered except in conformity with the use regulations here and specified for the district in which the building or land is located. And then section 9, specifically rural residential. Item D2, minimum yard requirements of 20 feet. You have my report and I have had an opportunity to digest that. I'm going to the planning and zoning recommendation on this item. Planning and zoning on March 31st, 2026, voted 0-3 to recommend approval of item B 26001. He had setback variance, therefore the recommendation is to deny this item. If you have any questions on my report, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Mark at this time?
Yeah, Madam Chairman. So Mark, when this building was originally erected, there was no permit to do so at the time that it was erected. So it was erected without a permit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I guess the key here is understanding the special conditions and hardship, and if there is any, which would be kind of our piece of the regulation that we have to look at. All right, this requires a public hearing. I will open that up at 9:31. And we have a couple folks here to speak on it. Kyle Hendrickson and Nancy Lehan. I'm not sure who wants to go first. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to start out by sharing with you that
If you could get that microphone down and give us your name, just officially for the record. Thank
this
you,
is
Ms.
going to be
Lehan.
a little hard. I have to explain that I have low vision. I can't see your faces, and I have to use very serious glasses to see my notes.
Okay,
So bear with me
okay.
being able to speak into this. My name is Nancy Guillen. I am the property owner at 11 Wagon Box Road. And I want to explain the circumstances. And I thank you, Commissioner, for asking about whether I had a permit at the time that I brought the building in to my property. I bought my property in May of 2022. I remodeled the small cabin on my property. And on February 19th of 2023, I had been in my cabin for exactly 9 weeks. And we were hit by a storm that was readily confirmed by many property owners in Sheridan County. That storm ripped a hole in my roof and brought water into every area of the home. And again, I had just remodeled it. I lived and worked from my home. And I was in an active contract to produce what I do in my work, and I had to continue. I also have a mortgage on my property, like a lot of people. And when you can't occupy your property, your home, and it's under a mortgage, you're required to stay on your property. So what happened is I was in desperate straits. I have photos, plenty to show you of what the property looked like at that time, but there were 9 feet drifts and there were incredible hardships as far as 30 below nights, the whole bit. I bought a camper that was available that was not winterized, but I needed to stay on the property. I brought that camper in, placed it on my property, and I also needed a place to work. I tried to work from that camper for almost a month on a 28-foot, and please bear with my sense of humor at this point, a 28-foot long extension cord for a computer. It doesn't work. And then in addition to that, I met with every possible hardship you could after losing your home from a natural disaster. And I wanted to do something for the winter, as what I had a problem with more than anything else was a laggard insurance company. I first got an estimate for the damage that totaled my house, like you would total a car, that was $15,000. And I have it in writing to prove that, no, that wasn't going to repair my damaged home. In addition to that, the person that did the adjustment, not till 2 years later did I find out, had never done an adjustment on a property claim. In fact, he was an Uber car driver. No kidding, this is not a joke. An Uber car driver and a part-time Chick-fil-A manager that the insurance company had come down from Billings but had never even done an adjustment. So in hindsight, this was a mess, and it continued to be a terrible mess because I thought I would only need the camper until fall. This happened in February, it seemed reasonable. That didn't happen. And the insurance company, we tried to negotiate. In fact, Kyle Hendrickson represented me, and we tried to negotiate with the insurance company more realistically. That estimate for the return of my home for occupancy was well into 6 figures. It was not $15,000. So we could not negotiate realistically with the company, and that was in the late summer and fall with winter coming on, and I'm in a camper, and I put the structure, which is a used 16 by 10 shed in place for me to work from. And I couldn't work from the camper. So it came in under those circumstances, none other. I didn't mean to in any way challenge the permitting process. The situation that I was in is I looked at the other buildings on that same back property line from me all the way across. And in that time frame, I noted that I set mine back 6 feet, which was more than the existing shed that I later got permitted, that was there when I bought the property on the slab. That's only 3 feet back from that property line. And then an adjacent property where there happens to be a shed and a very permanent structure that aren't nearly 20 feet. In fact, the shed is right on the property boundary at that 20-foot setback. So I did not mean to do anything out of malice or rebellion or renegade behavior. I did what I thought was appropriate. So I wanted to start out by saying that. The second part of this is that, you know, it's very confusing to people that see a property go through this. And what I'm getting at is I just tried to survive a storm. And I happened to be a single person that worked for a living, and I had a challenge on my hands. I needed to continue to work, and I needed to also settle this insurance debacle. So the insurance debacle ended up being a 2-year lawsuit that was going to end up in a honest to goodness trial here in Sheridan County on the basis of the bad faith and the behavior of that insurance company. And I don't wish this on anybody, but if anybody loses a house to a fire or to a natural disaster like this, we should have something in place that I did get. And after starting to bring in a tiny home or another shed to live in for the winter, I got turned in by some people around my property that thought that I was using every possible use of that property. And what I'm trying to say is I looked at what I could do economically to weather this storm, meaning that next winter. And I brought in a 12 by 24 shed that I completely turned into a well-insulated, well-designed building that I could live in for the rest of this period of time going through, getting over this natural disaster as well as the insurance debacle. The long and short is I'm going to hand out a plat of my property, and I'll show you that I have a permanent dwelling, single family on the 12 by 24 shed I just mentioned. I was asked to go ahead and file for permits for each of the buildings that I brought in. There were only 2. And I did that. And this was in 2024. But before I hand this out, I think the world of what Mark did to prepare the report to you. But I want to add, before we go any further, that he didn't include my history on this shed. I applied for a permit on it in 2024 as I was required to prepare a permit for the temporary, what was going to be a temporary dwelling unit that ended up getting approved as a permanent dwelling unit on my property. And I will point out what I'm talking about on the plat. The second is that I had that existing shed, another one, on my property on the northeast boundary. That was there when I bought the property, and it was even required to have a permit submitted, permit application. So I submitted 3 permit applications and in this time frame, and this is on the heels of at the end of 2023. And please ask any questions. I'm nervous.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get
Ms.
to all
Sheehan,
of
I
this.
do have a question for you. So the 16 by 10 shed that we're talking about today, when was that put
In
in?
2023.
In
right?
2023 it was
Shortly
installed.
after the storm and the fact that I had to have a place to work.
So
I'm just gonna pass these.
Nick, just Commissioner Siddle, for your earlier question, so it was placed on the property after we had the zoning rules.
Correct.
But the lot was itself, it was just the lot itself that was purchased before the planning rules. But the shed was placed after we had those in place.
And of
I just
course,
wanted to clarify that.
yes, no problem. The other thing is that at the end of 2023, some local residents anonymously complained to the building inspector, Wes Smiley, that I had put a septic system next to this tiny house that I was in the middle of preparing for a place to live in 2023 and into that next winter. And I did not, but I got a certified letter from Wes that was dated December 19th. I received it on Thursday before Christmas. And the next day, Wes came out and visited with me about what had happened. And he provided me,
We're talking about the septic now?
no, we're talking about this shed and
Okay.
the other
Okay.
other shed I have on the property. And he reviewed what I had done, and I have in my hand something else we didn't have in the planning commission meetings package. And that is, I was provided a waiver from doing any permits until I was able to reoccupy my residence. And so I brought with me, and I really appreciate getting this from your office the other day, Mark, is that it shows, and I'll just pass around a copy so you know that I'm representing exactly what I had. And what Wes did was looked over what I'd done. He knew that I didn't have a septic system in, and he knew that I needed time to get through this until I could occupy my home again. So I was given a waiver, and I'm just as a side comment, I'd like to mention that we really could be a leader in our state in terms of a county going ahead and having a waiver system for people who undergo a natural disaster like this and need to be able to stay on their home and be reasonable in the way they use their property. And during that period, and of course, not violate any of the DEQ or other floodplain issues at all, and do something to be able to stay on the property. So Wes provided me with that waiver. There's an affidavit that I signed in December of 2023 that states that I would get a permit on any other buildings that I intended to keep on the property after I was able to get in my home. when I was asked to prepare all of these different permit applications, including for the subject shed today, I did that immediately at a great expense during a time when I was still not in my home. I did not get back into my home until November 15th of 2025. And I lived in the tiny house, the one that was approved. And to be clear, on your handout, there is a drawing of each of the buildings that we're talking about, but the little pink one on the side has a good description of its application and zoning permit number on it. And what happened is I got approved for the tiny home to be a single-family dwelling permanent. I got approved for the existing shed as a permanent structure that's only 3 feet back from the back property line. And I also got rejected on this shed for the setback reason. So what I did is I looked at that opportunity to see if I could amend my application for the permit. I did amend it and stated that I would move that shed to a location that's in there in the permit application. And Mark and his team were very helpful in approving that option as opposed to moving the shed off the property or something else. So I propose that I move it in a location that's just slightly in front of where it is now and 14 feet back up the hill. What happened is I then, as the home was being renovated and utilities had to be changed, I had to totally rewire the home. I had also put in utilities underground to get the permanent permit on the tiny home. And those were all in the way. They were not only in the way, but we had removed so much rock that I have photos, if you want to see them, that the site conditions are indeed an incredible challenge. And I got everyone that had been working on my home and other consultants in to look at what I had proposed for moving that building just 14 feet. And also the site conditions were on slope. They were not at all conducive to moving the structure from its present location. So I also intended, and this happened on July 1 when I asked Mark for an extension of moving the building to September 2nd. That is in the documents from the county's planning office. And he approved that, but I, in the middle of all of that, it's not an excuse, and I'm not here for an undue hardship because of my low vision or my lost vision. But I did lose my vision in the middle of July. And I was going to Billings and Salt Lake City almost every other week. My point is I did not intend to not get a variance application in, considering what I learned by September 2nd. I did not get any communications from the county commissioners, the county planning office during that period from September 2nd till January. And then I got a certified letter from our assistant prosecuting attorney telling me I needed to move the building in 10 days or face $750 a day fines. I was beside myself. I went ahead and asked Kyle if he could please send a letter to the deputy or to the county prosecutor explaining my circumstance. I am not someone that intended to diss the September 2nd deadline. I did not receive any other communication, and they did not from me. But I needed to file a variance. It is due to the undue hardship that moving this building would entail. During the Planning Commission meeting, there was discussion of where else I could move the building. I had someone come in and do drone shots so that you all can see the site conditions that were that are present on my property that show clearly that I have nowhere else to place it. The last of this is that the building that was approved for the permanent dwelling unit there's no room. The problem with a map like this is it's flat. This site is covered with trees, with rock, and with unbelievable conditions that disallow the two permanent structures are close enough. They don't show that way on this map, but they are close enough that I can't get a building through. I can't get that 16 by 10 between the two permanent structures, those being my home and the permanently permitted single-family dwelling unit that the same planning office had approved. So I'm here with the facts. Please ask any questions. And I can also show you that in terms of what I did in that that crisis, and I don't know if any of you have ever been through a storm like that, but 144 Sheridan County property owners had incredible damage from that one storm. The record books were even hit by NOAA because I had to find out what the storm ratings were on that. We had 90-mile-an-hour wind gusts in a vortex right where my roof is. I didn't make this up, and I had just bought the place and lost all of the remodeling I had done in those 6 months prior. I beg you, put this in perspective and to please allow me the grace of keeping a building that is well maintained, that is nicely placed. It's on the only level spot on the property. And in addition to that, it wasn't put there with malice, and I have done everything I can, including submit the variance application by February 17th. And again, not to throw back on my eyesight, but I didn't even think I was going to be able to come to these meetings. And I asked for the grace of using video. I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad that you can know me. And I want you to ask your questions, so please
Thank you.
have that.
Thank you for being here this morning, Mrs. Dehan. Kyle, do you have any different information for us? Or
Nothing different, but just a few minutes, if that'd be okay.
if we could, yeah,
Is that all right?
to a few, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'll keep this brief, just a few minutes. I have known Nancy for a few years now. I did, get introduced to her when I was representing her in this insurance dispute that she had. I can attest that that was a very difficult time in her life. When this storm came in, water was seeping in everywhere. She was displaced from her home, initially lived in a camper, then was able to move into the small building, the 12 by 24 that's depicted there. She says this was, she put this there without malice. That's true. This was not a case where she, where a person, acts and then asks for forgiveness later. It was a good faith mistake, and she's owning up to that and asking, to be permitted a variance under the unnecessary hardship exception to the zoning rules. I would say that, of course, we have these rules for a reason, but we also have exceptions for a reason. And with respect to the Planning and Zoning Commission, I do think that the standard that they applied based on the questions that they asked seemed to be a little off in that it's unnecessary hardship, not impossibility. And if you look at the other alternatives for where this could go, and that's mentioned and then represented on that plat there was, discussion of moving the shed just further away from the line. If you look in the variance application, you'll see that there's an 18% slope right there. And then there's also utilities right there. So if you were to excavate and then move it just further away from the line, I don't know that that would even be possible with the excavation and the existing utilities. There was also a discussion in there about moving it on the other side of the property, but then closer to Wagon Box Road. But if you'll look, what's depicted, you'll see a propane tank, then you'll also see a water well there. So that's another, what might appear to be a feasible location is not actually when you look at the pictures and you look at the map depicted there. So I said I would keep my comments brief. I know Ms. Guillen would be happy to answer any particular, and me as well, would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I have some concerns. So we know the unpermitted accessory building was placed in 2023, was observed that year. Upon notification, the applicant did apply for a zoning permit in 2024. The county couldn't approve it because the building did not meet the minimum 20-foot setback. Mrs. Gehan amended her zoning permit application in March of 2025. So this is quite some time. September 2024, March 2025, she gets back to the county with the revised site plan, proposing the building's location farther west to meet the 20-foot minimum. The county goes back out there after her submission of the amended zoning permit application and see that the building is still in its original non-compliant location. Several jointly agreed upon deadlines to bring the structure into compliance with the amended zoning permit were set. And then finally, in November 2025, the issue was referred finally to the county attorney's office for disposition, whereupon Mrs. Gehan then submitted her variance application February 17th. And thank you for these, Ms. Gehan. It's, communication from Wes. Your property's in violation of state and county small wastewater, FEMA flood hazard, and county zoning regulations. Talks more about the violations, wants you to take immediate steps. They'd like to hear from you in 5 days. As you mentioned, Wes comes out and chats with you in December. You tell him that the violations are just temporary. You talk about the storm that, almost 150 folks in the county suffered from. And then he asks that you come visit Public Works and to sign the affidavit that you refer to. Then that affidavit states that the structures were temporary and that they would be removed or properly permitted. So I feel like there was a lot of back and forth over 3 years. And you had mentioned that you're back in your home in November of 2025. It's just taken a while I feel like it's taken too long to get this sorted out and not even really sorted out. Get a response from you and maybe, I don't know what this amended zoning permit application was that you said it was 20 feet back and then they go out and see that you hadn't moved it. Planning and zoning did recommend 0 to 3 to not approve this variance. And I appreciate the snowstorm, but as it applies specifically to this variance and the time that's gone by, I have a hard time supporting that variance because it was placed there after planning and zoning requirements were required for those buildings. Just those are my thoughts. Well, first, I guess let me close the public hearing unless there's any other comments. I'm going to close it at 9:59. Excuse me. And I guess I'd look for a motion for board discussion. I got ahead of myself.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve item B-26-001, the Gehan setback variance.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Madam Chair, I would like to say that we had several letters from neighbors of the property asking that we please not approve this variance because they believe that our planning and zoning does a very nice job in Story now as opposed to what it used to be. And they certainly would appreciate us maintaining our regulations. And so I didn't see anything from any neighbors saying they supported it. So, thank you.
Mr. James?
Go ahead.
Chair. You know, I always go back and forth between the idea of the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And having had multiple conversations with Ms. Geehan over the years, I know she's tried very, very hard with many instances that have happened that I think for a lot of us would knock us off our feet. I mean, having your house pretty much destroyed right after you bought it, and then having to put up a fight just to get the insurance company to reimburse you so you can get back into it. I would agree, and she's already stated this, that she didn't follow everything that needed to be followed. I get that. But I don't think it was intentional. So for me, I look at this and say, what's the best balance between private property rights and following the law, but also bringing in that humanity of what's happening in these individuals' lives? We're talking about a shed that if I can see backs up to some trees. It's not even really all that visible from the neighbors. So, you know, I think grace goes a long way. So I'll be in favor of this.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
That being said, Mr. James, we have zoning and planning commission for a reason. We don't always follow them on decisions, but most of the time I do. Anyway. We have zoning rules countywide for a reason, and I think we need to follow them as much as possible. As far as the lay of the land, where the building could be moved to, that's where they make backhoes and trenchers. So anyway, I'll be voting no on this approval.
Yeah. Just, Ms. Geehan, I do feel for your situation, but again, I feel like planning and zoning was incredibly flexible. Even after you submitted an inaccurate application that didn't show the true location. And then we had mutually agreed upon deadlines to bring the structure into compliance. And we had to get the deputy attorney involved. And anyway, I just, it didn't happen the right way. And I have issues with that. So, all right. Is there any other discussion? Okay, so I will be asking for a vote on support of the Geehan setback variance. Those in support, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails. Item 11, consider amended cooperative law enforcement agreement with the U.S. Forest Service, and I'll call on Levi Dominguez, our county sheriff.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. Levi Dominguez, Sheridan County Sheriff. This comes before you, what we've done every year for as long as I can remember, an agreement with the U.S. Forest Service, the Bighorn National Forest Service, to provide dedicated law enforcement up to the Bighorn National Forest Service. These are pass-through funds that the Forest Service provides to the county to pay our deputies to do these patrols while they're off duty, so not during their regularly scheduled patrol hours. Just to give you a kind of and that agreement runs from June 1st through September 30th every year. And to give you just a rough idea, in 2025, our deputies, not while they were currently working, but when they were off duty, picked up these shifts. We're just right around 160 hours of dedicated patrol up in the Forest Service in the north and south into the counties in the Forest Service and traveled and patrolled just a little over 3,300 miles while doing that. Great feedback from everybody and recreating, making lots of good contacts and positive interactions with the public that are recreating in the Forest Service. So if you have any questions?
Any questions for Levi on this just amended agreement? I think some changes with reporting. But same agreement, yeah.
Levi, it's only 3 months. That's through this fiscal year, it's only 4 months of the year.
Yeah, and that's how it's always been that. And that's kind of the busy time of the mountain.
I guess I was always under the impression that it was going to be for a yearly thing, but it's not. It's just during that peak.
Yep. During that peak is when we run mountain patrol. You may think we've got a couple other different agreements. We have agreement with the Wyoming Livestock Board that runs all year long. That we do dedicated patrols within the county for, in the rural areas.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Siddle.
I move to approve and authorize the chair to sign the amended cooperative law enforcement agreement with the United States Forest Service.
Second.
Motion a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item 12, consider Sheridan County License Agreement 2608 LA with Visionary Communications LLC for board crossing installation of bore 2, 1¼ inch inner ducts at County Road 80, aka Midland Road, fee of $332.25. And Ken is not here. This is just an easement. You guys have all seen it in your packet. Don't know if anybody had any specific questions. It's a bore of the county road.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Wright.
Move to approve and authorize the chair to sign Sheridan County License Agreement 2608 LA with Visionary Communications LLC for board crossing installation of 2 1¼ inch ducts at County Road number 80, also known as Midland Road.
Second.
The motion a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. And our last item is just discussion on elected salaries. We've met to chat about this once, and electeds asked to get together to just chat amongst themselves and propose something to the commissioners. So I really appreciate your work on that. Thank you. I don't see Dr. Berg here today, but the request was for the assessor, clerk of district court, treasurer, and the sheriff, an increase of 15% to keep up with inflation. That gets them caught up to 2026. We'll be back behind the 8 ball again in 4 years, but getting caught up anyway. And then a request from the county attorney going up to the 153 cap. The county's portion would be 81,000, the state's 72,000. As you recall from a previous conversation, the state had increased what they were providing. And then the coroner had asked to take his part-time position at $34,350 to $70,000. And I probably have the most questions around that, just because it's structurally a little different, taking it from a part-time position to a full-time position. And I don't know how that impacts his deputy coroners. Just knowing, I hope it's a way to kind of balance the overtime that we've seen in that office. We'll be seeing a budget amendment coming up for salaries from the coroner's office. So just wanting to hear logistically how that might help keep us within our budget guidelines or goals that we set last summer, and then are getting ready to reset. But we'll chat about that when he's here. I didn't know if there was any other discussion from commissioners today, or.
Madam Chair, I'd like to.
Yeah, please just.
Diana Bennett, County Attorney. Madam Chair, you already summed up really what the ask was, I think as a general group, about 15%. That's not compounded, that's just from the last one to the next four. That's not quite what the inflationary, the consumer price index was, but that's the idea of where it came from. That's just basically not to go backwards, really where that is. Otherwise, even with there's some benefit differences, I mean, that's just to avoid these positions were elected positions, and it's not for any purpose necessarily. We don't know what's going to happen in elections, but to not be going backwards. And that, as you just said, applies until the end of 2030. So then again, it's going to happen again, but that's the kind of the nature of the beast. But also Sheridan, as we've talked about, Sheridan County is an expensive place to live, and even not even the county, but the federal government and every level's recognized these increases in costs. If there's different benefits provided by the federal government have increased. So that's just generally what this is. And just mentioned, as far as the county attorney, the actual increase from the county that I'm requesting for this position is 13.5% increase, not just a little bit below the 15, because the state of Wyoming is making up the difference. Right now, they pay $50,000 to the elected salary. They will be paying $72,000 to the elected salary. They will also be paying, as you have in the letter, they will also be paying later. None of this happens until next year, even for the deputies. They will be getting an increase of $13,000 to $14,000 for each deputy county attorney as well. That's in the letter that I provided you from the Legislative Service Office. So even though you will be addressing salaries for the employees, those changes don't go into effect until the next year. So just to keep that clear, but that's the difference. I think that most the counties that have already acted now have basically gone up to that amount, to the now the circuit judge amount, not just for the county attorneys, but for all county officials can go up there. As you've heard me say several times, I think county attorneys are a different situation. I do remember that members of the board saying at our last hearing of when I think you were taking note that you weren't going to be asking for raises for the county commissioner positions. I just ask that you remember that these are all full, except for the coroner, and that's something I'm not going to get into. These are livelihoods of anybody that runs for these. This is not part-time. This is not retirement. This is the livelihood of everybody that runs for these positions. This is all they can do. This is all they got, nothing else. 6 different counties across the state, the county attorneys, including Crook County, who's also going to 153.7 in 2 years with a population of less than 5,000 people. That county attorney can also has a mediation business. I mean, that's kind of the nature of the smaller counties. That's not the case in Sheridan County. And I would also remind the board that I did not fill my position when I became elected. I am doing the job that Matt Riedel used to do and that I used to do. I am doing, and that's just for me, and that's who will be, whoever's next, as long as we stay at 5 attorneys, will be doing double the work, but with one less person in the office. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of more work than anybody else does in the office. And so, the option is to add somebody else. I've chosen not to do that because of the very reason of trying to keep salaries up for the staff members, for the staff attorneys. Because getting people to come here and stay here is a difficult task. So for people who went to college for 8 years, it's a big ask. So I've always really advocated for this, for the position and for the deputies, because it's really important to keep quality people. These are statutory duties. We do the duties of the district attorney and the county attorney's offices. As far as other positions. They're kind of similarly situated. We've all gotten together. There's been a lot of discussion every which way, but I think we all decided that the consumer price index was a fair way to go. It's less than what you've approved for COLAs for those and our staff, but that's just to keep up with, we're not going backwards. So
Yeah.
if you have any questions, I can't answer any questions about the corner. I was hoping he'd be here because I can't answer any questions about that, but
Well, I do, yeah, it was a really thoughtful memo and yet it's what over those 4 years our staff has gotten. It's proven inflation. It's kind of where we were, in our initial conversations with Kenny Custis as we kind of spitballed things. So, yeah, appreciate it.
and I appreciate you giving us the extra time. It was, we all stood up here and kind of didn't know what to say. And it was kind of, it's a hard thing to ask for. It's a hard thing to get up here and do. And it's also, it's not for us. It's for the position. It may not be any of us. So, but I think we all have a responsibility to keep this position, all of these positions up to where they need to be to get good people.
Yeah. No, I appreciated that process and happy there's not a quorum when all that would have taken a little longer. Anyway, yeah, thank you. Any questions for Diana? Okay. More later? Okay. All right. Thank you, Diana. With that, yeah. Did I hear something? No. With that, we are adjourned at 10:16. Thanks, folks.